Executive Officer for MWMC. I've been here for about 18 years in July, and then 8 years in my current role. I went to Oregon State, so I heard a lot of references to the Ducks. I'm a Beaver graduate, graduated in 2001. In fact, I grew up in Corvallis, Philomath, Corvallis, listening to Tim Shuey, watching Tim Shuey on the weather. If this is the same Tim Shuey that was on the weather, I think it probably is. A little bit about me. I'm a sixth generation Oregonian. I enjoy skiing and snowboarding. I'm a member of the Willamette Pass Ski Patrol, and I keep bees. So I have 7 beehives in my backyard, and I have a wife and 2 boys. So with that, I'll let Dave introduce himself and we'll get started.
All right. Thank you for inviting us. I first learned about wastewater treatment a long time ago at Lynn Benton Community College, where I enrolled in their water and wastewater technology program. And my first job as a wastewater treatment operator was in my hometown of Staten, Oregon. And then I worked there for a few years. And about that time, Eugene and Springfield and Lane County were working on building a plant down here and needed to hire quite a few more people to operate it because it was just a lot larger and more sophisticated than their old plants. So I got here about 6 months before this regional plant started up, and it was basically 37 years ago this week that we started our treatment plant.
Wow.
And it's been a really great place to work, and a lot of changes have happened along the way, which we'll cover some of those today. When I'm not at work, I really enjoy the outdoors, and I'm also involved as a volunteer firefighter and emergency medical technician with McKinsey Fire and Rescue. So very proud to have been just landed in the right place on the right day during the holiday farm fire to be on the crew that watered down the Good Pasture Bridge and kept it in place for us and future generations, hopefully. So that's how I spend my off time.
Okay, let's see if this screen sharing works here. Can folks see us, my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. All right. It probably changes your view a little bit, so you can't see as many people. But so normally when we're in person, I'll ask a few questions and see what kind of response I get from folks. But I'll just pose the questions here for you guys to think about, because I can't really see everybody. But just always ask to start with, how many people think about wastewater on a daily basis? And usually, like, pretty much no hands go up in the audience at that point, maybe one. And then I asked, how many people have heard of the MWMC? And for every 10 people, for every 20 people, there might be one person that's heard of us. And then if I ask if anybody's toured our treatment facility, usually a couple hands will go up, and somebody won't associate MWMC with the treatment facility, but they'll realize that they've been to the wastewater treatment plant and they've been on a tour. So I'll start off with that, and then we'll see here. It's a little bit about what we wanted to talk with you guys about today. It's just the history of MWMC and the success of our partnership. We'll briefly touch on our mission and vision, do an overview of our facilities and our treatment plant process, talk a little bit about the resources we recover at our facilities, get into a little bit about community outreach, and then talk about how we fund ourselves and what our challenges are looking forward. So these 3 pictures here, the picture in the lower left really serves to help people visualize. So every time it's looking out over the Willamette River, over our treatment facility off River Avenue, but it's basically every time a toilet is flushed or a faucet is turned on or someone takes a shower or an industry runs a process involving water, pretty much every drop of that water from the entire Eugene Springfield metropolitan area ends up at our facility in River Avenue. So it's pretty impressive what actually happens out there, and we'll chat about that. The lower right shows our facility along with the river, and then we own quite a few acres out off of Aubrey Lane, across from Highway 99 and Fiddler's Green, which we call the biosolids management facility, where we grow poplar and spread solids. So move into that now. So looking back a little bit, giving a brief history, probably many folks remember when the Clean Water Act passed in 1972, and that really laid the foundation for the framework for MWMC and for cities around the country moving forward with respect to environmental rules and regulations pertaining to wastewater treatment. In 1977, the cities of Eugene and Springfield, along with Lane County, formed the MWMC. Springfield and Eugene were treating wastewater individually in both cities at the time, and they were able to take advantage of the construction grants program that was offered by the federal government, whereby a hefty portion of our facility was able to be built and paid for by the federal government if wastewater was treated on a regional basis. So Eugene and Springfield took advantage of that, and our constructed the facility we have now, and it came online in 1984. We brought our biosolids management facility online in '89, and then got a permit issued to us by DEQ in 2001 that's been basically laid the framework for all the capital projects that we've implemented in the last 20 years. And I guess I'll back up here, explain the pictures. So one of the reasons the Clean Water Act passed, and people probably remember this a little bit, but the nation's waterways were pretty bad. They're pretty dirty. The impetus really was the burning of the Cuyahoga River in Ohio. It burned on more than one occasion, and it was so polluted from industrial sources and other sources that sparks from a railroad crossing of the river actually lit the river on fire. And that really was the impetus for the Clean Water Act. And then the picture on the bottom half of the screen here shows one of our large interceptor pipes being constructed back in the late 70s. So as I mentioned, the MWMC is built on partnerships. And I should ask, if anybody has questions during these slides, feel free to interrupt us with a question, or you can hold it to the end, whatever works. So we're built on partnerships. We have a 7-member commission. The members are shown here. We have 3 members from Eugene and 2 from Springfield and 2 from Lane County. 3 of those members are elected officials. We have Joe Pictionary as a city councilor from Springfield and Jennifer Ye as a city councilor from Eugene. And then Pat Farr is our county board rep. And the other 4 are citizen appointed members. And they've been with us for some time. Looking at our service area, you can see it in the map on the left there. We really serve the cities of Eugene and Springfield, and then inside the urban growth boundaries of both cities, there's some unincorporated areas in there that we also serve. Our service area is approximately 250,000 residents, and we take domestic and industrial waste from both communities. We also take hauled waste or mobile waste from septic providers and other providers outside the urban growth boundaries. Springfield is responsible for the administration of MWMC. So we work with the commission, we deal with permit issues, and work with our budget and our capital construction program and project delivery. And then Eugene is responsible for the operations and maintenance of our assets. Lastly, I think I'll note that we have an operating, to give you a sense of scale, we have an operating budget of about $20 million a year and an annual capital budget that's about between $20 to $30 million a year. So while you probably haven't heard of MWMC, or maybe you have, it's really just a partnership between the cities and the county. So local government providing a regional service. I won't spend much time on this slide, but just to note that the commission recently adopted some mission and vision and value statements to guide our work. And we've also adopted a strategic plan that's really based on a foundation of a successful intergovernmental partnership to guide us in our work moving forward. So you'll see things like clean water partnership, fiscal responsibility, those types of things. This is really what guides the work that we do. This slide shows just a quick overview of our regional facilities. They're kind of, although we serve the entire region, the regionally owned facilities are fairly centralized. We have about $450 million worth of assets. We have the main treatment plant here. I don't know if you can see my mouse out off of River Avenue. We call the Water Pollution Control Facility. Our biosolids management facility is out here on Aubrey Lane. And then we have a number of regional pipelines that take flow from both cities and regional pump stations. The only asset we have in Springfield is the Glenwood Pump Station and then a wet weather control facility in Springfield. So I think Dave's going to talk to you for a couple slides and we'll show a video and see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, the regional facility is located on a 100-acre site, as Matt mentioned, off of River Avenue near Beltline and the Willamette River, and it was, which part of it was the original City of Eugene treatment plant. If you look at the larger photo, see the big grassy area kind of in the middle, that's mostly where the original Eugene plant was, and the regional plant was kind of constructed around it, and then when it was ready to go, we kind of started feeding the new plant with part of the flow and had both plants going on it, running at the same time until the regional plant was up and running stably and successfully. And then Eugene plant was shut down and eventually demolished. So yeah, we get about 30 million gallons on average every day, with some high flows in the winter because it rains a lot, the groundwater table rises, and we've got throughout Eugene and Springfield, there's joints and cracks in the sewer pipe where groundwater can infiltrate and get in. We're constantly working on that to try to get that plugged up, but that's the reason for some higher flows in the wintertime. And we also have so we're regulated by Oregon DEQ under what we call a discharge permit that stipulates all the treatment requirements, how clean the water must be before it can be discharged to the river. And that's their DEQ is delegated by EPA to run that program, as most states do for EPA. We also have a laboratory on site to do all of our lab work, which we also provide some other support to the local stormwater programs with lab analysis. It takes about 78 full-time people at the plant to run this 24/7. And our pre-treatment programs help protect the collection system, the assets there, and also the workers there from hazardous chemicals that keeping those out of the system, and also to prevent pass-through in the plant that would harm water quality in the river, because the plant's only set up to design to remove certain pollutants. It can't treat and remove everything. So we rely heavily on the pre-treatment program to keep a lot of chemicals and other hazardous materials out of the wastewater. Next slide.
Okay, Susan, did you have a question or did it get answered? Oh, I think you're on mute, but I think you said no, maybe.
No, I was trying to clap for you for your part of the presentation.
Okay, thank you. I think if it's okay with you guys, what we'll do now is show like a 4-minute video on the overview of the wastewater process. This has worked fairly well in the past. Hopefully it will work here. Depending on your internet connection, we'll see. But if this doesn't work very well, just yell at me and let me know and we can talk through the process. Let me know if you can hear this as well.
No sound.
So for some reason, we're not getting any sound, Matt.
You guys aren't hearing it?
No.
Okay, bummer. I can send this out afterwards. I think that might be easiest and you guys can watch it at your leisure. Let's see here. So with that, I'll go back to here and start. Maybe Dave, you can start walking through maybe just to do primary, secondary, and then.
Yeah, I'll try to describe this process for you. The flow comes into the treatment plant at the lower left bottom of the screen into our pre-treatment facility. And there we remove large debris, rocks, rags, sticks, and any rock that's in the wastewater. All of the rocks and sticks and rags, et cetera, get ground up and are otherwise dewatered and transported to the landfill. And then if you follow the yellow line to the top left, where we have 4 circles, those are big 4 primary clarifiers, and they just act as settling tanks. And these are our most economical treatment process. Primary treatment removes at least half of the solids in the water and also the oxygen depletion capacity as the wastewater degrades in water. So that is the physical treatment. And then it flows, what's left over, it still has fine particulate solids in it, and it flows kind of to the middle upper rectangular area where we have large aeration basins. And this is the start of the biological treatment process, which is the process that converts dissolved organic matter and fine particulates that won't settle into a settleable flock. And we take advantage of natural occurring microorganisms that reside in water around our environment. We just create the conditions to where we create an environment that they love and can thrive in, and we operate it in a manner that multiplies them in many thousand times fold in terms of numbers than are in the natural environment. So we keep them in the aeration basin, and they're eating the food that's coming in as the dissolved organics from the primary clarifiers are. And they go through their life cycle stage and die off and multiply, reproduce. It's a micro ecosystem that's doing this treatment for us. And as it converts this dissolved matter into a flock, this flock will settle. And so the water from there flows into these secondary clarifiers. So there are more, we have 10 of them in all, and they're going to settle out the flock that was created in the aeration basins. And after this, these processes to this point, we've been able to successfully remove consistently more than 95% of the organic matter in the wastewater that our plant is mostly designed to remove. And we've also removed ammonia. Ammonia is another pollutant that we have to lower to meet the terms of our discharge permit. And the microorganisms help us remove that as well. And then the last stage of the treatment process on the far top right, those are that's our chlorination system. We have shipped in large truckloads of sodium hypochlorite, basically a strong bleach solution, and we mix it into the wastewater to disinfect it and destroy any pathogens that are in the wastewater there before we discharge the water to the river. And then we also use another chemical, sodium bisulfite, to neutralize any remaining chlorine in the water, so that we're not putting chlorine into the river. And that's essentially what the liquid process is. All the solids get removed and put in. If you go clear back to the left-hand side again, in the middle left are anaerobic digesters, and they treat the solids. Basically, this process, we have tanks that are sealed, completely sealed, and we take advantage of another type of microorganisms, anaerobic ones that thrive in the presence of without free dissolved oxygen. They get their oxygen from combined chemicals that are in the water, but they thrive for solids treatment at a temperature of about 100 degrees, about our same body temp, like our body temperature. So we have to keep those tanks heated for that process to work. And then they give off byproducts of carbon dioxide gas and methane gas and water. So they're converting the solids into those gases and water. And when we're all done with that, we've reduced the solids mass or volume by by about 65% or more. And then we recover and use that methane as gas to run a cogeneration system, which I'll talk about a little later in the presentation. Okay, and then another offsite facility. Back when the regional facilities were constructed, the commission made a decision to locate the solids processing after anaerobic digestion out of town for a few reasons. It takes a lot of land, and it's also one where there tends to be more odors generated. But anyway, we put the anaerobically digested sludge in the lower picture on the right-hand side. It goes into, every day, it is flowing into these facultative sludge lagoons. And it stays there, and facultative organisms in that lagoon continue to break down some of the organic matter that's still in the sludge. But we also use it as storage for our seasonal biosolids processing operation. And so what that is every year at this time in the spring, we'll start dredging what solids are left in the bottom of these lagoons and putting them into this facility in the middle of that picture, where we have belt filter presses that squeeze all the water, most of the water out of it. And then we're able to truck it out onto drying beds. And that's what the upper picture shows. These are asphalt lined drying beds, just like big parking lots. When the sludge is dewatered, we put it out there in windrows, and then daily we take this heavy equipment and turn it over. We got to keep it aerated, keep it fresh, so it doesn't go septic on us. That would create a lot more odor. And as we turn these rows over, it also helps dry it out more. And then it'll be ready for land application later in the summer, once it gets dry enough to put in truck trailers, haul out to agricultural lands. And we've got tractors with manure spreaders, so we put that on either on grass seed farms or on our own biocycle farm. And the last thing I'll say about this before we go to the next slide is we manage this as a Class B program. And the EPA has a few different classes of biosolids. There's Class A and Class B. And with Class B, there's the potential for pathogenic organisms to still be present. So we must operate the program with certain management controls, such as we can only put it on land where the public isn't present. We can't put it on land where farmers or ranchers have cattle out grazing right away. There has to be some periods of like 90 days or 6 months. It's it's 6 months before someone could graze cattle on it, to ensure that any pathogens that were in there originally are no longer there. But actually for us, we have regularly analyzed our biosolids, and it meets the Class A standard. But the lab test for it takes so long to get the results back, we can't afford to wait that long. We need to get it out and on the farmland so that the farmers can go in and work the fields and get their field replanted for the coming season. So we go ahead and just manage it as a Class B program, even though our biosolids are really clean and regularly meet the Class A requirements, basically meaning they're virtually pathogen free. Okay, I mentioned the BioCycle farm. 20 some years ago, the commission decided, well, we probably shouldn't only rely on private lands and agreements with local area farmers. What if someday they were no longer interested in participating in our program? What would we do with the biosolids? So they got a community assistant advisory committee together to help them analyze the situation. And anyway, it ended up with a recommendation to buy some adjacent property next to the facility. And they bought 600 acres and decided to start growing poplar trees. So this was all set up for a poplar plantation, and poplars were selected because they can actually take more water and nitrogen than most any other crops, more than grass seed crops. The rate of biosolids that are applied to the grass seed and to the poplars are limited on what the crop uptake of the ammonia nitrogen is as the available nutrient. And that's how we measure and know how much to put on, because just like at home, if we over fertilize our grass, it's too much for the grass, it'll kill it. But not only that, the chemical is absorbed down into the soil, it keeps going down and ends up in the groundwater and contaminates the groundwater. So we can only put on so much that no more than what the crop will take up. And poplar trees take up more than any other crop. So that's why we selected poplars, because with this amount of acreage that the commission has, if in the future local farmers, for whatever reason, were no longer interested, MWMC has this land and can rely on it compared to an alternative that wouldn't be good, and that is just burying it all in the landfill, which would be very, very expensive and not serve any useful purpose. The trees have been, we have 3 management units of poplars on this site, and we've harvested them twice. We're limited to growing them for 12-year periods under agriculture because this site is farmed wetlands. And if it's not being ran as an agricultural site, because of the wetlands that are present, we wouldn't be able to operate it as a biosolids management treatment process. The wood that comes off of it, most of it has been used for pulp for paper. Then there's also hog fuel, and some have actually been turned into veneer, experimented with that, and also manufactured some milled lumber with it, and have produced We've had some ceiling grills made out of it. So if you're ever in the library meeting room over in City Springfield Hall, some of the ceiling grills are in that room. So we're not only a treatment plant, but a recovery facility. So we try to recover as much of what we can out of the wastewater that we can put to good use. At our poplar farm, we're taking some of our treatment plant water and using it to irrigate the trees with reclaimed water. We're also working right now on developing a Class A water treatment facility at the plant, which will take our treatment plant effluent and clean it up even more so that it can be used for other uses such as gravel washing and watering trees out in the community, and extending our irrigation system, landscape system out around the outside of the fence in public areas outside the treatment plant. The Class A treatment level basically means it's pathogen free and poses no risk with public contact. And then other things we're doing along the lines of resource recovery. I mentioned the digester process. We're ever since the plant startup, we've taken that gas and used it as fuel in an engine to generate heat and power. We recover the hot water off the engine to heat our digesters at the plant. That saves on electrical power consumption. And then we also have a generator coupled to that engine, and that's generating electricity. We generate enough electricity to cover up more than 50% of the plant power requirements. And that's the economic value of that is $20,000 a month, or enough electricity produced to power 600 homes. And I talked already about our biosolids program, that as resource recovery for use as a fertilizer and soil conditioner. And we're also currently constructing a renewable natural gas facility. That's the top picture. And here, what we're going to do is filter our gas and make it basically natural, clean enough to put in the natural gas pipeline. We'll be selling the gas to Northwest Natural. And also there is a market for the environmental attributes of the gas. So it's basically going to be ultimately used for vehicle fuel. It'll be sold on the market, the environmental attributes for this purpose. And it's going to be generating some pretty good revenue. We don't know yet what that will be, but it could amount to several $1 million per year of revenue for MWMC. The facility is going to cost about $14.5 million when it's all said and done. And right now we're thinking that it's going to have a payback period of maybe 5 to 12 years. We won't know for a while what that payback period is going to be until we really get some experience in the operation and in the market.
So I think we'll do a quick time check. I have about 5 minutes left, but if I can either stop or blast through it, but I wanted to see where you guys want to go and leave time for questions.
So we are at time for those people who need to depart, get back to work. We need to let them get back to work. If you want to go ahead and continue on, this is quite interesting. And I know that we got started maybe a little bit later than normal. So go ahead and proceed if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah, if people need to drop off, it's not going to hurt our feelings. So we'll blast through this real quick and then see if there's any questions. For the remaining slides, we have a robust community outreach program. We do, when times are normal, pre-COVID, we did handful of tours throughout the year with local groups, community groups, schools. We have a program affectionately dubbed Clean Water University, where we get students that are at 5th grade age from across Eugene and Springfield out to the wastewater plant, 700 plus students in the fall that go through 10 different activity booths with in partnership with our drinking water utilities, EWEB and SUB. And then they learn about wastewater, stormwater, and the water cycle, and then they get to take a modified tour of the plant. That's been really popular, and we're doing that program virtually this year. And lastly, I'll mention that we have a number of community events that we sponsor or have booths at, like the Lane County Fair, EWEB's Run to Stay Warm. And then last year we did we partnered with Lane County on their summer movie drive-in series. You might be wondering how we pay for all this and where our revenues come from and where our expenses go. It's just a real high level slide. So basically, you, the users, pay for the work that we do. Everybody in the community, for your wastewater bill, a component of that wastewater bill goes to MWMC to fund our operations. You'll see roughly about 80% of the money we collect in the last year comes from user fees. Our expenses really focus on, it's really our capital program and then our operations and maintenance of the facilities that we own. Those are really driven by our regulatory requirements. So high level picture there. And then looking forward, just a few things that are challenging for us. We're gonna get a new permit from DEQ this year that will dictate new standards that we need to meet. Two things that are chiefly of concern for us are temperature requirements. Temperature is being regulated as a pollutant now. The Willamette River fails to meet temperature standards associated for it routinely, and we can't exacerbate that problem with our discharge, the temperature of our discharge. So we need to address that. And then you may have heard about toxic pollutants or forever chemicals that are being discussed more now. PFAS and PFOA are one example. Chemicals that are manufactured by humans and stick around forever and don't break down. Those are getting increased emphasis or increased scrutiny, and something that we may need to deal with. People, through whether they ingest those chemicals and then excrete them, or if they use them in different processes, they end up in the wastewater system. And then we're doing some disaster mitigation planning as well. And then you might wonder, what can you do to help? This is, I think, the last slide before we get to second to last slide. But basically, individual actions do make a difference. And so a couple things that you can do is try to take your fats, we call FOG, fats, oils, and grease, and try to dispose of that in a manner that doesn't put it down the drain. So you can pour grease from cooking into a metal can, let it harden. You don't even have to freeze it. Actually, you can just let it harden in the can and then throw it in the trash. That keeps your pipes from clogging up, and it keeps our pipes from clogging up, and it makes the system operate in a happier manner. Also, we've seen a lot of disposable wipes that aren't disposable. So taking wipes and other things that shouldn't be, paper towels and kitty litter, other things like that shouldn't be flushed, and throwing it in the garbage can. And then if you have unwanted or expired prescription drugs, those can be dropped off at med return boxes at various spots in the community. The last thing I'll mention is we have a monthly newsletter. You can sign up for it at our website, mwmcpartners.org. I can also send this information to Susan after the meeting, and then you can follow us on social media. So that concludes the presentation. Sorry, we went a little bit long, but if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you very much, Matt and Dave. This was very interesting. I think making our waterways more fishable and swimmable is everyone's desire. And thank you for the work that you're doing. It's an eye opener for me. I am really pleased to hear all of this. And I don't know if you realized it, but World Water Day was a week ago, March 22nd, 2 weeks ago. And that was what kind of spurred on my idea of asking you to come. So thank you so much. If anyone has questions, please proceed. You may have to unmute yourself. I think you're muted, Lion Jim. This is our virtual clap. Thank you very much. Everybody is really happy to have heard this. And it sounds like you've got projects ahead that we can have you come back again and tell us more.
Definitely, yeah. Our renewable natural gas project is one, and there'll be others. And I can forward you the video that we try to show, and you can send it to the membership
Okay,
along with some other information as well.
wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. And Laura Lynn and April, thank you too for being here.
All right,
Well, let it rain.
for sure. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us.
Okay,
Are you closer?
I think that's about it.
Leave when she said-
Thank you, everyone. Roger, you still there? Just see the Alps in the background.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Well, thank you, everyone. And some of you will see on the 13th for the board meeting. Our next meeting will be on the 21st, and Ann Musgrove has arranged for Don Kale from the Register Guard to come. And so I'll be sending out an email about that, but basically he wants everyone to come with their questions because he thinks that asking questions is an important thing to do. If you're not familiar with Don, he's a pretty provocative fellow who gets responses from people. Oh, do you have a question there? Yes. You got your form ready to fill out. Stephen, you're muted. Were you trying to say something? You're muted. Just click on your microphone there. Can you see where your microphone is down in the corner there? Should be the left-hand corner, Stephen. There, I think you have it. Go ahead, Stephen.
Oh, no, I thought he was on to talk to me. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I thought you were wanting to let us see that you were getting your form filled out for the convention.
The registration form that I'm gonna do that. But